Just got through security. I'm at my gate waiting for my flight, and I'm super stoked for this trip. Not only is it my birthday weekend, but I'm heading out to Denver to visit my family. And my two nephews, they said they have a few surprises in store for me. Hopefully the weather holds up. Right now it's a little gray outside, but we should be able to take off on time, and hopefully we get in early. We made it, guys. I'm in lovely Louisville, Colorado, about a half hour outside of Denver, just hanging on my brother's back patio here, waiting to continue the birthday festivities. Just got back from lunch and picking up my nephews a few hours ago, and then we're gonna go to the Rockies game in a little bit. Tomorrow, my brother and I are cooking for a little pasta party we're having, and my nephews are going to cook with me. This should be a lot of fun. We're gonna do a little funfetti cupcake. Maybe a few twists thrown in. Let's see. First things first, we're gonna roast off some cremini mushrooms because they're going to go inside our meatballs. Have, slice, and roughly chop 6 to 8 cremini mushrooms. You can certainly use portobellos, you can use white buttons, you can use shiitakes, whatever you like. Coat with olive oil, a pinch of kosher salt, and pepper to taste before going in with some dried thyme. Again, to taste, mushrooms love thyme. Now, stir to coat, like so. Very nice. Keep it in an even layer and roast at 425 for about 10 to 15 minutes before setting aside to cool. All right. Very nice. Time to start the tomato sauce. Add a 35-ounce can of whole tomatoes to your blender jar, then fill the can about halfway with water. That'll make it easier to blend. Before we go in with our seasonings, a few pinches of kosher salt. All right. And some black pepper to taste. I'm going heavy on this, but you certainly can go a little bit lighter. I like a nice robust sauce. Some dried parsley, about a teaspoon. It's gonna go in, whatever comes out of the jar. All right. Oregano. I don't want it to overpower, so I'm going lighter, about a half a teaspoon. Onion powder, about a teaspoon of that. Some dried basil for a little herbaceousness, about half a teaspoon. Garlic powder, a teaspoon's gonna go right on in there. Before we add our secret ingredient, fennel seed, about half a teaspoon. It's gonna make it taste like sausage, but there's no sausage in there. This sauce is completely vegetarian. Put on the lid and give it a couple of buzzes. Whoop. Whenever we get it on. There we go, pulse. All right, take the lid off and give it a taste. Are we there yet? Are we ready? All right. Heat a straight-sided saute pan over medium to medium-high heat for about 5 to 7 minutes. Then set up your station and start cutting your onions and garlic. We're going to use half of this medium onion. Keep the root end intact when you cut it so you don't cry. Peel off the skin, then use the heel of your palm to hold it in place while you cut your planks. Then pinch the ends together when you cut your sticks, and then nice chop. Crack the skin of 5 cloves of garlic. It's going to make it a lot easier to peel in a second. All right. Like my Band-Aid, that's Paw Patrol, my nephew Liam's favorite. Slice. And a rough chop. Really get into it, guys. Use your shoulder. Add in 2 tablespoons of olive oil to the pan. Add in your onions and garlic. And stir to combine. Saute for about 5 minutes before adding in the red pepper flake. couple of pinches. You certainly can omit it if you don't want it spicy. I like spicy. And now the fennel seed is going to reinforce that sausagey flavor, about half a teaspoon. Stir it on up. Is there anything that smells as good as onions and garlic? Be a candle. Next up, our tomato mix. Get low with it. Nothing splatters like tomato sauce. That's better. Now we can reinforce our seasonings. A few pinches of kosher salt. Black pepper to taste. Some onion powder, another teaspoon. 2 teaspoons of the garlic powder. Another teaspoon of the dried parsley. Half a teaspoon of dried basil. Half a teaspoon of dried oregano. And to extend the sauce, 28-ounce can of tomato puree. Stir to combine. Very nice. And our last ingredient will be some fresh basil chiffonade. Roll up 7 to 8 basil leaves into a nice cigar, and then slice. Then sprinkle in and stir. Bring to a boil, then reduce to a simmer, and let simmer for about 3 to 4 hours. We have a couple of vegetarians joining us this evening, so we're not going to float the meatballs in there once they're done, but you certainly can do that too. Lit it on up and let it go. Time for the meatballs. Add in 18 ounces of ground beef to your bowl, followed by 1 pound of ground pork. You certainly can use ground sausage, which would make for a very flavorful meatball. You can also use ground veal for a more tender meatball. Add in about half a cup of our roasted cremini mushrooms. Make sure you get every last bit before going in with the herbs and spices. Half a teaspoon of dried thyme, half a teaspoon of dried oregano, 1 teaspoon of dried parsley, about a teaspoon of onion powder, a little more, and a teaspoon of garlic powder, nice pinch of kosher salt, and black pepper to taste. We went light on the salt because we're going heavy with the pecorino romano cheese, about a half a cup. Next up, the breadcrumbs, 1/4 to a half cup. You may have to adjust along the way once you start mixing. Add in 1 egg. Now with your clean hands, make sure they're clean. Get in there and start folding gently. You don't want to mash and squeeze because that's going to really affect the texture of your meatballs. You want to gently fold. Now if we stopped right here and baked this off, we'd have an awesome meatloaf. But we're making meatballs today. Spray your sheet pan with some nonstick spray and pinch off about 2 to 3 ounces of the meatball mixture and roll in your cupped palms until you form something that roughly resembles a golf ball. Keep going with the process until you've used the entire lot. It makes about 19 at that size. Bake at 375 for a half hour. Time to make some fresh pasta dough. We're going to start with 3 eggs here, and a nice pro tip is to not crack them on the side of the bowl. Use a flat surface like the plate there so we don't drive shrapnel up into the egg and we don't get shell in our finished product, because then we have to go fishing, and I don't think we want to go fishing right now. I certainly don't. Very nice. Mix it on up. I'm using a fork. You can use a whisk, whatever you got on hand. All right. Add in a couple of good pinches of kosher salt. From up on high, a little salt bay. About a tablespoon of olive oil goes into the mix. 2 teaspoons of water. And then 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Mix it until a shaggy dough forms. Okay, ready to go. Then turn it into your mixer and knead for about 10 minutes or so. Listen to that baby purr. Wrap in plastic and let sit for about a half an hour, depending on the humidity of the day and the moisture of the dough. Looking nice and supple there. All right, fold it on over, fold it over, tuck it in, roll it over, and set it aside. After about a half hour or so of resting, it's time to crank out some pasta dough. You can certainly use the electric mixer attachment like we did for one of the dough balls, but you can also use this hand crank model. The method and the rhythm are exactly the same, you just need to get used to it. Coat your dough ball and bench scraper in some bench flour before cutting in half. Try and get it in one clean cut there. Take your half and cut it into quarters, like so. Put that to the side. And start hand stretching it, or you can certainly use a rolling pin until it's thin enough that it goes through the 0 setting on the pasta machine. We're going to fold that in half, and we're going to run it through again. This is the rhythm, guys. Make sure you have your hand underneath to catch it. Switch to 1. Set it up, and crank it again. Then we're going to fold. Then we're going to crank it again. Then we're going to switch to 2. That's the rhythm. Crank, fold, crank. Crank, fold, crank. Until we get to the 5 setting on the machine. You can certainly speed up once you get more comfortable. That's a good thickness right there. It's getting really thin where we want it. We're going to run that through. Very nice. Almost there. All right. Now we're going to lay that in our bench flour. Give it a nice little tap. Tap. Grab our dough blade and cut in half and run it through the fettuccine setting. You can put it up to dry or you can boil it immediately. Fresh pasta takes maybe a minute or 2, so you definitely want to keep an eye on that. A good tip is to work in an assembly line. And then once it's done, it goes right in the sauce to coat. My other nephew Liam is passed out right now. So this is my nephew Austin. Say hi, Austin.
Hi.
And what are we doing tonight, Austin?
We're making confetti cupcakes.
Yes, right. We're making confetti cupcakes here right now. Let's go. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees and prepare 1 box of confetti cake mix according to manufacturer's instructions. I'm going to do the first batch and then my nephew's going to help me out. So we're going to fill about 3/4 of the way through, and he's nervous. It's his turn. We're going to add in 1.5 cups of Lucky Charms cereal and mix it on up before dosing it on into some cupcake liners and baking for about 20 minutes or until you insert a toothpick and it comes out clean. The only question after that is frost or not to frost. It's up to you. First things first, when I got home, guys, not unpack. That's still sitting on the floor. I had to shave. That mountain man look was itching me like crazy. Thank you for watching as always. Hopefully you enjoyed watching the video as much as I enjoyed making it for you. And thank you for sharing my birthday with me. I'm going to take a little bit of a hiatus while I plan season 2 of As You Eat It. So some new locations, some new recipes, and some new good times. Follow me along on Instagram and Facebook, same name As You Eat It. And remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel. As always, cook how you want to cook, eat how you want to eat, celebrate how you want to celebrate, eat as you eat it. Now, if you'll excuse me, it's time to unpack.